So in terms of when we get the season started, if we get the season started, how many races are they roughly aiming toward? We've heard anywhere from 10, from 15 to 18. So in ballpark range, what's the amount of races that they're aiming for in 2020?
Right now, if you ask Chase Carey, he'd definitely say 18. It'll be the upper level is what he wants to try and do. And it's because you can't turn around yet to certain countries and say, well, you can't host one, or we're not going to try and host a race with you. So you are trying to see if it can happen. And it's when it physically can't is when they'll start to drop off. So I imagine the calendar they're putting together right now will have in pencil about 18 races. And it's because some of them do make sense. I mean, you compare Bahrain and Abu Dhabi at the end of the season as a back-to-back. That's minimal disruption, easier travel by then, hopefully, and the locations make them quite easy to pair together. You can have a race, a region of races in Asia. Vietnam we need to go back to, China we need to go back to, or they're aiming to. And they're working very actively because these are places that have spent a lot of money to try and host them, invest a lot in the sport. But for China's point of view, they need to show that as a country it's improving and it's able to host things again. So they will invest. They will spend a lot of money, I think, to try and have F1 there. And from Vietnam, it was going to be their first race. So they've built up to it, spent all the money preparing for it. They really want to see that happen too. So there are a lot of venues that are trying hard to do it. And I saw a tweet last night that Monza, obviously Italy's been the centre of the outbreak here in Europe, but they tweeted that their date was the same date as it was previously, confirmed. Now, it's not official from F1's end, but internally they must have been told something. So they're still trying to put on, I think, as many of the races as close to their original dates as there were, and then just fitting in some of the extra ones. But they give the window of 15 to 18. I think we're definitely more likely to see something nearer 15. Once it goes much lower than that, I think is when it starts to cost more money to Liberty, in the sense of the broadcasters pay to cover the season, and they have a minimum amount of races. And I think that's individual deals will be different. So, Sky might say, this is an example, but they might say it has to be 14 or 15 races minimum. Someone else might say it has to be 12. I don't know. But once you do start dropping below 15, I think you're at risk of having to receive less money from the broadcaster for the season, which obviously is not good right now based on how little money's coming in.
Yeah, well, very interesting. And for us, obviously being in Canada, we're very kind of looking closely at the Canadian Grand Prix. Obviously, it was postponed from the June 12th to 14th date. And then when I looked at the map of what F1 put out, they said that they're looking at the Americas and Asia in October and November. And anybody in Canada will know that October and November, we could get anything from sun to snow to ice to whatever. So
yeah, we got snow today.
Yeah, it's what is it today? May 8th? May 8th? Yeah, May 8th, and it's -6 overnight. And like Shaker said, we're getting some snow. So it can get crazy. And it's May, right? So in your opinion, do you think that they're going to try and squeeze in the Canadian Grand Prix? Because a fall setting in Montreal, it would be beautiful, but weather conditions are a whole nother story. So could they just be canceled altogether for 2020?
It's a weird one because I always find this strange about Formula One. I don't get why we're so precious about the weather, because the best races happen in the wet. So if you go somewhere where it's more likely to be wet, so what? I understand if you're going like monsoon season somewhere, then you might not be able to drive a car. Similarly, if you went to Montreal in December, likelihood is it's going to be an ice skating rink that you're racing on, and that's not going to be safe at all. But I don't think having it colder than we would like and wetter than average is actually a problem. I think it's great. So I feel like we should test these things a little bit more. And I do wonder if this will be the scenario where they'll look at that. If we go to Canada, I think it would be the first one on the sort of Americas section. So it would be Canada, then Mexico, then Austin, or then Austin, Mexico, whichever way around they want to do those two. And I do think they'll look to fit it in. I think it was on Reddit that ticket holders got sent a survey saying about their thoughts of having the race in the fall. So I do think it's something they are looking at, but you're right, it's a very small window. It's going to be pretty much guaranteed to be October time, and it's whether they're willing to take that risk. But given the current circumstances, I think they'd say they are willing to take that risk. If there's value in it for the promoter, if there's value in it for the teams, and there's value in it for F1, the teams aren't going to go there and complain about the weather. If they've been given the option and been said, look, this can earn you a bit more money and you need it right now, so shall we give it a go? And who knows? If you do get a great race, and it's teams will have to adapt, they'll have to work out how to run their cars in colder conditions, perhaps. But they run them in extreme heat conditions or altitude. It's just another test, and that normally throws up variables, mix up a race. So I'm all for it, even if hopefully I'd get to go, even if I'd be freezing.
You probably would be. Yeah.
Yeah.